Like always, appreciate everybody being on. Hope you guys have had a great day. Summarizing some notes from the Rutgers game. Obviously, we won the turnover battle. We won the penalty battle, the drive start battle, the sack battle, and the explosive play battle. So those were positives for us. Obviously, very impactful on the game. When you talk about general positives of the game, I thought it was a gritty culture win. We had 63 guys play in the game on offense or defense, not counting special teams, so that was a real positive. I thought, obviously, the story of the game is the guys that played through injury and played through sickness. Even if they weren't able to play the whole game, guys that really tried to put the team first and sacrifice and do what they had to do to give us the best chance to win. Areas for growth, we got to consistently protect our quarterback, and we got to finish our sack opportunities on defense. The other areas for growth, more turnovers on defense. We could have had 3 more turnovers fairly easily in that game on defense with interceptions. We got to be more disciplined with our penalties. I think we're getting better in that area, but there's still some penalties. The one drive that Temple had in the game was extended by 3 costly penalties that almost led to a score. Specifically, obviously, you guys know I'm not a big fan of the pre-snap and post-snap penalties. They're the ones for sure that you got to get fixed. To me, they're discipline penalties. We talked about finishing blocks and straining and finishing tackles and making sure we're wrapping. There's still some times we're coming in and throwing shoulders. We got to make sure we're wrapping. And then obviously the other thing is, obviously it would help us if more guys got the flu shot, and that's our staff and everybody involved. I think there's some vaccine fatigue with everything we've been going through for the 2 years. I think our number of flu shots were down this year compared to normal. I think that's maybe because of all the COVID vaccine conversations that are going on out there. But I know there's a lot of talk amongst our guys that they don't want to go through this again. So this I think will be a motivator moving forward. Getting on to Michigan State. Obviously, Coach Tucker's doing a good job. In his second season there. Got a lot of respect for Coach Tucker. I've known him for a long time. Actually, I think I might have mentioned this before. He and the Alabama defensive staff came and visited us a few years back to exchange ideas in the offseason on defensive football. They have 5 super seniors, COVID super seniors this year on their team. When you talk about offensively, I think Jay Johnson does a really nice job for them in coordinating the offense. Obviously they got a running back that everybody's concerned about, and then they do a really nice job of play action pass. Everybody's so focused on stopping the running back that they hurt you with play action pass. They've run a bunch of flea flickers that have been successful, huge plays. Reverses, fly sweeps, quarterback keeps off of zone read, again off of the running back. So they do a nice job complimenting, obviously, Kenneth Walker, maybe the best running back in the country, with all these complementary plays, schemes, and pieces. Jalen Reed, the receiver, has had a really good year for him. Jalen Naylor, who's been out, the other receiver, number 8, and then obviously Peyton Thorne, their quarterback. Those 4 guys are probably the guys that jump out to us the most, but there's obviously other guys that we could mention. On defense, Scotty Hazelton. I think obviously, Mel Tucker's got a defensive background, so you got the combination of Scotty and Mel on the defensive side of the ball. Guys that jump out is obviously defensive end number 96, Jacob Panashuk, who we recruited him and his brother, so we're very familiar with him and the family. Number 3, Xavier Henderson, their safety, and then corner number 9, Ronald Williams. All those guys really jump out, and again, there's other guys that we could mention too. And then on special teams, Ross Ells, again, as a returner, Jaden Reed, as a kick returner and as a punt returner is a guy that is obviously dangerous. So that's my review of Rutgers, and then a brief summary going into this game with Michigan State, and I'll open up the questions.
Start with Mike Gross, LMP News, and then Mark Brennan.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Good afternoon, James. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I wouldn't normally ask this question, but I think in this moment it's appropriate. Are you going to be Penn State's football coach in 2022?
Yeah, fair question, and I get it. But I was hoping that I'd be able to have a conversation with you guys at this stage, but I don't have anything new to report at this time. Hopefully I will be. I'll get with you guys on Wednesday. I don't mean to keep kind of moving this thing out, but like I told you guys before, I wanna make sure when I say things to you guys that you know it's completely transparent and totally honest, and you know there's still some moving parts going on. So, but I understand the question, and again, I think last time I met with you, I was hopeful that I'd be able to talk to you guys about it today in more detail.
Mark Brennan, Lions 247, then Greg Pickle.
James, with respect to the flu, where are you guys? Do you expect to have most of your starters back, and with Sean Clifford particularly? Thank you.
Good question. I appreciate the question. I thought I was going to get another one on the last topic, and I get it, guys. I truly do. But yeah, so where we're at right now is, as you know, we had massive numbers on Saturday with 35 guys. So most of those guys are coming out of it. And in a pretty good place. But as you can imagine, we've had a few more, kind of go into it, with the flu. So it's a little bit of a moving target, But I think you mentioned Sean. Sean wasn't feeling great on Sunday. Was feeling better on Monday, and is feeling back to normal today. So I think that's one of the guys you specifically mentioned. But again, those 35 guys that had it, we've looked at this thing, and it's been typically about 3 days. So most of them are either through it or coming out of it, but there has been a few more over the last couple days that have got it, kind of late in this cycle.
Greg Pickle, Blue White Illustrated, then Rich Scarcella.
Some of them were flu. Some of them seemingly were
Greg,
not.
Greg, for whatever reason, I didn't get the first part of it just clicked in.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. On Saturday, it sounded like some of the guys were flu-related, some weren't. I mean, where do you feel you're at this point from just an overall availability point? Obviously, Michigan State has some issues in this regard, too. So it's November. It's the last week of the season. Obviously, guys are banged up and playing through things. But just overall, coming out of Rutgers, where do you feel like you're at?
Yeah, I think this time of the year, everybody's banged up, as you can imagine. Some are healthier than others. I think once we get through this last bit of this flu, knock on wood, I hope. Knock on wood, I don't know what this is. I think we could be as healthy as we've been in a couple weeks, which would be great. So, yeah, I think you guys, if you have anybody specific you want to ask about that, that's fine. But I think we got a chance to be healthier than we've been in a couple weeks, obviously, after last week, which was an extreme. But I think, you guys will get a good feel for that on Wednesday when you come out to practice, because I do think a couple of these guys should all be ready to go by Wednesday for sure at the latest, I hope.
Rich Scarcella, Reading Eagle, and then John Sauber.
Hi, James. How are you today?
Good, Rich. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right, thank you. I want to clarify something, and you touched on it. Sean leaving the game Saturday was because of the flu virus situation, not something else, correct?
Yeah, Sean, like I said, he was not available at Friday's practice at all. It came down Friday morning. It happened. Saturday, we didn't know. We thought Mason Stahl was going to be the starting quarterback in the game because we didn't have Sean or Vayu. We actually had to create a new cadence Friday at the hotel, because if Sean was going to be able to go, he wasn't going to be able to talk. So I don't know if you go back and watch when Sean was in there in the beginning of the game, we were using a silent cadence with Sean in there because his voice was pretty much shot. And then after the IVs, the doctors, the trainers, and all, Sean felt like he could go. But him and Caden Wallace, both of those guys tried to go, and they were on IVs, and they did not have the energy, and were lightheaded and weren't really productive. So we said, yeah, we're gonna make a change here. Caden was pulled out to take care of him, and then Sean, obviously, we pulled him out as well. So they were valiant efforts, but those guys, we appreciate them. I think there was 14 guys that tried to play with the virus. Some of them were more successful than others. I think everybody, a couple of these guys sent me a text Saturday night. Everybody had envisioned that they were going to be the Michael Jordan flu game, and they were going to, what did Michael score, 60 points and play his tail off, and there was a heck of a story to write. It didn't necessarily play out that way for a lot of our guys that were sick, but I still truly, and I know their teammates appreciate the effort that they tried to give. Especially when, again, we felt like we only had one quarterback available for the game.
John Sauber, Center Daily Times, then Dave Jones.
Hey, James, how are you?
Good. How are you, John?
I'm doing good, thanks. You mentioned about asking about guys specifically. Where are Mike Miranda and Curtis Jacobs at from a health standpoint?
Yeah, we expect both of those guys to be back this week. We expect both of those guys to be practicing this week and today, to be honest with you, today.
Dave Jones, Penn Live, and then Donnie Collins. Dave?
Can you hear me?
I can now, Dave.
Okay. They took all my questions, but I'll go to plan C. From your experience, when one of your teams gets firebombed like Michigan State last week, do you have the ear of the players more so, or do you have to build them up emotionally and psychologically? Because that's like getting knocked out in boxing, something like that. Which from your experience, is it?
Yeah, I can't get into the specifics of how you phrased the question, but I understand what you're saying. I think it's challenging because, as you know, whether it's a close loss that people feel like you should have won against a really good opponent, or whether it's the opposite, it's challenging. Not only do you have, obviously the disappointment that you got to push through and learn from and grow from. You got to bounce back physically. You got to bounce back emotionally. You got to bounce back mentally as quick as you possibly can. But then these guys are also getting hammered on social media, getting hammered, kind of out walking around in the communities. So it's challenging. There's no doubt about it. And especially, teams that have high expectations and have high standards. So it's challenging.
Donnie Collins, Scranton Times-Tribune, then Corey Geiger.
How you doing, James?
Good. How are you, Donnie?
Doing well. When you went back and watched the film on the offensive line, you had three guys out there who really haven't played a lot in the past. Wiggin, Effner played three positions, and Tangwall. What did you think of the job those three guys did? And do you think they were able to kind of build off the physicality you'd seen from the line the last week or so before that?
Yeah, I think we've been building on it each week. We have added an extra inside run period. We did that about 6 or 7 weeks back, took it out of individual and added that. Our O-line and tight ends and running backs versus a scout team inside drill, I think that's helped us. I think we've gotten more physical. I think we're finishing more blocks. I think we're running better. I thought Landon came in as a freshman and played really well. We were very, very pleased and very impressed with him. Obviously it was a lot of moving parts that magnified it against a team that I think plays good defense and is physical and is tough. So we were very pleased with Landon. I thought Wigan, did a nice job. He's been a great teammate. He's big and strong. He's kind of handled his role as well as you could expect a veteran guy to do like that, and I thought did a really nice job. Was serviceable in the game and did some really good things to build on. And then Effner is a little bit like Wigan. He's a veteran guy who's kind of waited his turn and has accepted his role. But the fact that he played 3 positions in the game, I think is really impressive. And I think, that those things are exciting for all 3 of those guys, for their future and for our future. Obviously, the flexibility with Effner. I think Landon's got a guy that has a chance to be flexible as well at both guard and tackle and possibly even center. So, really proud of those guys. And, it's something to build on for sure with our offensive line moving forward.
Corey Geiger, DK Pittsburgh Sports, then Audrey Snyder.
James,
Hi, Corey.
for most of Penn State's football history, people were kind of led to believe that the school had as good a facilities as anybody out there. I'm not sure you can talk about this yet until you invite everybody for the beer you were talking about, but what exactly do you want from Penn State's facilities? What is the message that you would want to have everybody know that these are some specific things that we need to compete 365 days a year?
Yeah, I'll get into that in a little bit more detail here soon, Corey. I'd like to focus on Michigan State as much as possible, but I think it just aligns. And I actually think you guys have the ability to tell this story, and the media has the ability to educate as much as anyone. And I've said it really since I got here. We have to compete the 364 other days a year with everything. Everything matters. When we go to these other schools and these other campuses, try to go see them. It's pretty easy on social media to track kids and where they're going and what they're doing and what they have and what they see. There's universities all over the country putting out information. So, for us, I'm always studying best practice. But I think it'd be pretty easy to do. We've done it internally. It'd be pretty easy to do. And there'll be a time and place for me to speak on these things. But I actually think it's even more powerful if it's not coming from me. You guys are experts in this field as well. So there'll be a time and place here that we'll talk about that in more detail. But it really just comes down to, I think the original statement you made is a really important one. But it's about competing in every single thing 364 days a year. And that's what I think makes football so exciting and why it's so competitive, because everything matters.
Audrey Snyder, The Athletic, then Ben Jones.
Hey, James, I'm not sure if you want to go into it now or not, but you mentioned the internal study. What are some of the things that you guys found within your own facilities and with regards to maybe some other places in the Big Ten? Yeah,
Facilities is just one part. There's a lot of things. And again, I keep saying I'd like to talk about Michigan State as much as possible. And again, I know that, last time I talked to you, I said so I understand these questions were coming. But I think it's really, really important that we keep our focus on Michigan State. We keep talking about facilities. It's much more than that. But again, I understand the questions.
Ben Jones, StateCollege.com, then Allie Berube. Ben?
You got me?
Now I do.
All right. How's it going?
Good. How are you, Ben?
Good. I just crushed a bagel, so I'm feeling good.
Nice.
Yeah, I have lots of questions, but I'll save some of them for tomorrow. When you look at what Michigan State is good at and what it's not good at defensively, a lot of teams that you face are usually in the middle of the pack. Maybe you're not a great run defense or pass defense, but you're kind of in the middle. When you face a team like Michigan State that is statistically dead last in passing defense, how does that impact a game plan when you want to be balanced with what you want to do, but the reality is, there's always stories within the numbers, but they're not good at something.
Yes. So, yeah, I think the numbers do matter, but you have to play your game plan, and you have to stay balanced, because I think if you try to become something on Saturday that you haven't been throughout the season, then I think you're going to get out of whack. You're not going to, your players aren't going to play with the same confidence. You're not going to call the game the way you naturally would call the game. I think there's an awareness, obviously, and your game plan should be impacted by that a little bit, but you just don't want to skew too far in one direction. I think continuing to commit to the run game and be balanced, not only to be able to run the ball, to win games, but also to take some pressure off of the passing game and our quarterbacks and those things as well. But I do think your point is a good one. They're looking at us and they're saying, what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses, and how do we hide? How do we hide, some of our weaknesses, and how do we attack? How do we attack, some of their weaknesses? I think, how do you minimize their strengths? And you're trying to do the same thing. So I think that's a big part of the game. I always try to look at that. So on Monday nights, I sit down with Coach Lorig, the special teams coordinator. We go through everything in detail. And at that time, I really look at, our special teams compared to their special teams, and how do we match up, and what are their strengths and what are our strengths, and do they negate each other, or how is it that? And then same thing on defense, and then obviously on offense as well. And as you know, some teams and some games just match up better, and some, their strength is at an area that's a weakness for you, and then that gets magnified on Saturdays. And that's always an interesting thing to look at during the week and see how it plays out. I think I've seen you guys kind of write stories on these things as well. There's certain opponents you match up well against, and there's certain opponents you don't, because their strengths maybe are at a position or an area you're weak, and that, and you're trying to do everything you possibly can to maybe not eliminate, but minimize the impact of it.
Allie Berube, ABC 27, then Joe Giuliano.
Hey, Coach, instead of asking you how you're doing, I'm curious what your favorite Thanksgiving food is, and then I'll ask my real question.
Christ.
Favorite Thanksgiving? Somebody else is talking. Favorite Thanksgiving? I don't know. Kind of a combination. I'm kind of like, I want to kind of blend multiple foods together, whether it's macaroni and cheese and turkey, or whether it's black-eyed peas and collard greens, or my favorite thing is sweet potato pie, to be honest with you. A lot of people don't have sweet potato pie. They have pumpkin pie, but I'm definitely a sweet potato pie guy. So that's probably my favorite. My wife and daughters will make that.
All right. I think those are all good options. I'm curious, as we wrap up this second season that's kind of been impacted by COVID and all of those kind of things, what has this team showed you over the past 2 years that gives you some confidence moving forward into next season?
Yeah, resiliency, right? Off the field, on the field, families, personal lives, academically, all those things. This is a place that has really high expectations and standards, and should. We align with those as well. And that's not just of the fan base, that's of our players, that's of the coaches, that's all of us. So, it's something that I'm excited about moving forward, because it's been painful, I think, for a lot of people in college football, and really athletics, and really just people in their everyday lives. I mean, COVID has had a huge impact on everybody. I know our kids getting back to school and things like that, it's had a huge impact in every kind of walk of life. So, I'm proud of our guys. I'm proud of the staff. I'm proud of this community. I think we did a pretty good job, with COVID. I was kind of as you know, I kind of bounce back and forth a little bit, with my family down south, and coming here, I was really proud of how the state of Pennsylvania handled it. The amount of masks that you saw, and if you really look specifically when it comes to Center County, we've done a pretty good job of it, which has allowed us to get back. I know there was a lot of concern from people about getting back to a full stadium, and we've had, I think based on attendance, I think we're second in the country. I think we've averaged 106,000 plus. And I think there's a lot of people that question that and had concerns about that, rightfully so. But we showed that we were all willing to make sacrifices, individual sacrifices for the greater good. I know that was great for Penn State football. I know it was great for the university and the community as well. So I'm proud and I'm appreciative of what we did inside the Lash building. And outside as well. And some Saturdays were better than others, but overall, I'm proud of our guys, and I'm proud of our university and community.
Joe Giuliano, Philadelphia Inquirer, then Andrew Destin.
Hi, James. How are you?
Good, Joe. How are you, buddy?
Fine, thank you. I think all of us on this call respect what you've been saying about, wanting to talk more about Michigan State and not about this other stuff, but you want us to educate the people on what your concerns are, and I was wondering if you could give us a little more help.
Yeah, and again, I'm happy to do that, Joe. You're one of the guys that will get an invitation to the Beer in the Basement, just so you know. I said that at one point, and everybody's like, well, when's that? Well, not everybody's getting an invitation, but you are, Joe. And I'm happy to kind of go through that in detail. I actually think it's important for it to come from others. I think it's really important for that to come from others, and I think that could be media that get to travel to other places and venues. That could be from coaches on our staff that have worked at other places that we've hired and brought in. I think that'd be a great question for you guys to ask. The assistant coaches that have been at other places when you have opportunities to get with them. I think that'd be great for our administration to talk about as well. And I've had very, very honest conversations. And I think, Joe, all the way back to year one, we've been talking about these things, and we've made great strides. And I always want to come off. I don't want it to come off the wrong way. I'm very appreciative of the strides that we made, but there was a long period of time where we did nothing, and it put us behind, and we've been playing catch up, so there will be a time and a place for it, and you will get an invitation to the Franklin basement. I call it a man cave. The ladies in my family say it's a woman cave, that they run the basement. But you will get an invitation to that night.
Andrew Destin, Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, then Neil Rudell.
Sorry about that, mute issues. James, got the chance to speak with Malik earlier today. Have seen him on the field, the last few games. What makes him a candidate to be a key contributor, not just for the Michigan State game, but kind of moving forward for your program?
He's a cool kid, isn't he? Yeah, big smile on his face. So appreciative about being here. You look at his body. You're talking about one of the taller receivers that we have, 6'3" plus. One of the faster guys, on a roster. He's a legitimate 4.3 guy, which I don't really believe those guys exist. And he's really worked hard on his route running and his ball skills. Him and Parker Washington are like best friends. They're constantly together. What's great is they both kind of complement each other, and Parker's got elite ball skills, and Malik has really improved in that area. He's smart. He works hard. It's very important to him. I remember going on the home visit. Flew to Canada. Him and his brother had an apartment. The snow was like up to here, and he was very appreciative of the opportunity to come to Penn State, and that hasn't changed. He approaches that every single day. He's a great teammate. I think he's going to be a really good special teams player. I think he's got a chance to develop into a real vertical threat, maybe more so than we've had, really in a number of years. And that's I think something we need. Obviously, Jahan has brought that, and I think Keandre can do that, and Parker's shown some flashes too. But I think he's got a chance to be a real vertical threat up the field at 6'3", 4'3" in the 40, and can make some big plays. I did almost strangle him on Saturday because he put his arms up and celebrated at like the 5-yard line, and if they wanted to, they could have threw a flag. It would have been no touchdown. The ball would have been back at the 20. And as much as I was hugging him and telling him how happy I was for him, I was also telling him if he would have got that penalty, he could have run right out the tunnel because he wouldn't have wanted to come back to the sideline. But I'm super excited about him and his future.
We'd like to welcome Neil Rudell back to the world of having a microphone. So Neil, Altoona Mirror, and then we'll go to Nate Bauer.
Well, thank you, Chris.
Hi, Neil.
James, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hi, Neil.
Yes. Okay. Hey, at the risk of jeopardizing any kind of invitation, even though I know you have a ping pong table, if you could go back to Mike's original question about coaching here in 2022, which you deflected, but can you at least clarify that's your desire on next year, or is that up in the air?
Yeah, I've been asked this question a bunch, and I think I have said and shown of my commitment and of my loyalty over 8 years. I don't really think that's a question. Obviously, this is much more complex than just a yes or no question that I get in these press conferences. And I know a lot of coaches handle it different. But when I speak, I want to be able to speak in detail, and I want to be able to know exactly what's going on. So you guys, you keep asking me these questions. It's not a simple yes or no answer, and I think I have displayed and showed my commitment and loyalty over the last 8 years.
Nate Bauer, Blue 8 Illustrated, then Daniel Gallen.
Hey, James, how are you?
Hey, Nate. Good, man. How are you?
Good. Hey, through your experience this year of guys that you brought in through the transfer portal, have you learned anything? Has anything changed in terms of what you think your approach will be moving forward, specific to bringing in like 50-year guys and or 60-year guys, as opposed to guys that might just naturally fit into the way that the scholarship roster breaks down?
Yep. Yeah, I think, you'd love to be in a situation. I guess it's a different answer, but I guess what I'd say is I'd love to be in a situation where I could study the data over the last 10 years and make a really strong prediction of where our numbers would be, because that's how I prefer to work, and then be able to say, okay, we're gonna save 3 scholarships for transfers on defense and 3 for offense, or maybe 5 this year, or maybe 8 one year, or whatever it may be. The other hard part is we're recruiting at a really high level right now. So it's hard to turn down a really, really good high school player, which is how I would prefer to build and recruit anyway, when I don't really know what's necessarily out there in the portal or who's going to. So it's hard to turn down something now who's a really good player waiting on a possibility of something later. I've also tried to remind our staff that we got to make sure that we continue to be thorough. We're so thorough recruiting high school student athletes. I don't see people being thorough at the college level. There's guys transferring to other schools from our place that no one's ever called about. I don't know how you can do that. You have no idea what was going on at the previous institution. So we've done a really good job of that. We've talked to coaches at the previous schools. We've talked to high school coaches. We've talked to the kids. We've talked to the parents. We got the transcripts. We do all these things. And some of these kids, literally, you hear they've hit the transfer portal, and in a day and a half, they're already committed to another school. I don't know how that happens if you're not talking ahead of time. And we've seen that literally time and time again, which is illegal. So for us, we may be a little bit slower in the process because we're going to be thorough. But I want to approach the transfer portal very similar to how we, approach the high school prospects, and make sure we have all the information so that the young man and his family, and so we can make an educated decision and find the right fit. And I think because we hit on such a high percentage last year in the transfer portal, I don't want our staff to let their guard down and feel like it's going to be that easy moving forward, because I don't think it is. But to answer your question specifically, Nate, I'd love to be able to hold a few every single year, but it's just hard to tell. It's hard to tell what you're going to have, especially this year with the COVID numbers. I hope, did I answer your question? I hope so.
Daniel Gallen, Penn Live, and then Tyler Donahue will have our last question.
Good afternoon, James.
Hey, Daniel.
Last week you talked about how senior day, who was walking, wasn't necessarily indicative of plans for next year. One guy we didn't see walk was Jair Brown, obviously listed as a senior, been here for 2 years. Are you expecting him back next year? And if so, what do you kind of see as a next step and what's next for him in his development?
Yeah, I think that's more than a fair question. I have not talked to Tig about how he wants to handle this. So, I don't want to make an announcement on here that I think is really, for him to do. If that makes sense, I hope you respect that and understand that. Sometimes you guys ask me really good questions, and I don't think I should answer until I've talked to my staff, talked to my team about or given them a heads up. We've obviously started this process a little bit. We did it during the bye week with guys. We got a pretty good feel for what guys are probably going to do. But some of these conversations are going to need to happen right after the season ends during bowl prep. And I think the people that have covered us for a number of years, they see we usually put out, some statements or some graphics, posts that these guys announce what they're doing. So we'll try to coordinate those things again, but there's a lot of things that go into it too. The extra year of eligibility impacts a lot of these guys. And obviously graduation dates are impacted by that. And then also obviously NFL opportunities. You're trying to balance all those things out. I have another year. Does it make sense coming back and trying to maximize my experience at Penn State? Have I already graduated? Do I still need to graduate? And what is my, NFL status at this point and opportunities at this point? Obviously for us, one of the great stories is, all these guys that decided to come back, all the feedback that we've got is their draft status has either dramatically increased or stayed the same, and allowed them to get closer to graduation. So right now the model's working pretty good, and all these things factor in. Talk to their parents, talk to them about it, explain them, give them all the data and all the information, and then try to help them make the best decision possible for them and their family.
Final question to Tyler
I
Donahue.
know that was a long answer. Sorry.
Tyler Donahue, Lions 247.
Hi, James.
Hi, Tyler.
Christian Veilleux. Surprised you haven't heard that name pop up yet in the press conference, but where does he stand right now in terms of getting those reps in the field, coming off of that performance, and how do you evaluate that with Sean Clifford being, as you said, back to normal, and how that pans out for your quarterback plan at Michigan State?
Yeah, you guys must have all went out last night. Nobody's got their camera on this Wednesday, so everybody must have went out and got after it last night. Yeah, obviously Veilleux did some really good things that we're excited about and want to build on. And obviously he's been getting, last week, I think I told you guys, he's been getting, the number 2 reps in practice and was ready to play. And, that's how it will be again this week. Sean will get his reps. I think I told you guys this, I thought Sean had his best week of practice last week before getting sick. But obviously Christian Veilleux came in and did some great things, and ended up being our player of the game on offense as the coaches vote. I think we usually put a graphic out after this press conference, but that was great to see. So we'll go back to the rotation that we have had. And obviously it's a good feeling knowing that you have a guy, that you feel has played and played at a high level in actual game reps, which is something we hadn't had up till that point.
Thank you very much, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys. And again, I appreciate the questions and I understand them. And I'm sorry that I couldn't give you guys more information.